parents. Hey, it's Jen popping in here today to talk about better head control. What do neck muscles and what does the pelvis have to do with having better head control? Now, I know a lot of us with kids who have poor head control or want to increase your child's head control often kind of get stuck in this cycle of thinking that it's all about the neck muscles. So if we have stronger neck muscles, our children will have better head control. And I want to break that down for you and kind of turn it into a myth. I mean, do you need stronger neck muscles for head control? In a way, but there's a way to get better head control without stronger neck muscles. Often our kids, it has nothing to do with having stronger neck muscles, and I'll just demonstrate it for you, and I encourage you guys to follow along and move along with me so you can actually feel it too, because you can feel it in your own bodies. So having stronger neck muscles is useful in some situations like this. So if your child's pelvis doesn't move, which is quite common with our kids, so if the pelvis is rolled backwards, my daughter used to sit like this because I propped her to sit before she was ready. So she would sit like this. She didn't know how to sit on her sit bones. So she didn't know she had a pelvis that could roll in 3 dimensions, and it kind of got stuck in this position. And she would use her arms and her head to keep herself from falling backwards. So if I'm leaning way back like this, because my pelvis can't roll forward and sit on those sit bones, it's like, think of the skeleton system like stacking the bones. So here I can demonstrate with Sven here. So if his pelvis doesn't move and it's kind of locked in this position, which is quite common for our kids, he needs a lot of muscular strength to hold his head and the rest of him upright in space, or else he would just fall over. If we didn't have contraction of muscles in the front of you, you would tip right over. Okay, but if his brain knew how to organize his bones better, his skeleton better, to come upright over top of his skeleton, so you can see the difference, right? This, you would have to use a lot of muscular effort to hold yourself upright. This, the head is balanced over top of the pelvis through the spine. So the pelvis and the spine and the head are organized. They're working together to use the least amount of muscular effort to hold his head upright. So we're a dynamic system. It's not just about holding your head upright, but it's how functional and how well organized do you use your spine and your pelvis. Yeah, unfortunately, his pelvis is kind of locked in, but you can think of the pelvis like a ball that can roll backwards and forward. And you can see I'm following the movement too. And guess what's happening to my head? So as I'm rolling my own pelvis backwards and forward, that force is being transferred through my spine, which my head is attached to my spine, and because my pelvis is moving, because my spine is moving, my head is moving. And so this allows me, because I have sort of somewhat organized pelvis, spine, head, I can play around with how my pelvis is sitting, so I can sit more on my sit bones to balance my head over top of my skeleton system, so I don't have to use a lot of muscular effort to hold my head upright. Now I can do the opposite. I could roll my pelvis back and tip back, and all of a sudden I have to engage my stomach muscles, I have to engage my neck muscles to hold my head in an upright position because my pelvis has shifted. So having the skills and the tools and the knowledge and those tiny little micro movements of how my pelvis and my spine and my head all work together will let me have useful movements like having better head control without using a lot of muscular effort. And that's what we want for our kids, and that's what good movement really is. Good movement isn't using a lot of muscular effort. Good movement is being able to organize and coordinate those muscles and that skeleton in space without using a lot of muscular effort. So it's our children's brains being able to recognize and being able to organize the pelvis and the spine and the head all together as one unit in different situations. So that is what we're talking about this week, is how better head control can actually be developed and explored and increased by exploring better movements in the pelvis and better movements in the spine. So there's simple things that you guys can do as parents at home to kind of encourage this head pelvis connection. So I'm going to talk a lot about having better head pelvis connection, so you can explore that. When your pelvis rolls backwards, what does your head do? When your pelvis rolls forward, what does your head do? How to explore that connection, and adding in those little pieces of movements that your child just might be missing. So I like to think of it like their brain has kind of pieced together a rough framework of how their bodies move through space, and they're just missing a few tiny little micro movements to fill in the gaps of their knowledge. And once you start filling in those gaps with those tiny little micro movements of maybe rolling the pelvis this way, maybe rolling the pelvis that way, and feeling where the head shifts in space, those are those little tiny movements that fill out their brain's knowledge a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, to help them have better head control in different situations. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. That's what we'll be talking about today. And I'll put a link down below. So if you wanted to get started on, how to pick up your child and explore that head pelvis connection, how to explore the movement of the pelvis, I'll put the link down below so you can check that out. But I'll also be talking a lot about that this week inside this group, about that head pelvis connection for better head control. Okay, so if you have questions, pop them down below, and let's explore the head pelvis connection this week. Okay, so looking forward to it, and we'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye guys.